Lyra's small shuttle slowly drifted through the endless void of space. Her home planet was far behind, and the stars outside only reminded her of the vast emptiness she felt inside. She had been sent out again to find a place where she might belong, a place where someone would finally see her for who she was, not for her strange, otherworldly appearance, but as a living, breathing being with hopes, dreams, and a heart. Lyra's journey had begun long before this moment. She remembered the first time she was sent away from her planet. Her people were not like others in the galaxy. They had soft green skin, large eyes that shone like jewels, and delicate antennae on their heads. Their culture was different too. While other species valued strength or intelligence, Lyra's people valued compassion and empathy above all else. It was these qualities that made them unique, but it also made them vulnerable. To the other species in the galaxy, their softness was a sign of weakness. From the moment Lyra was old enough, she had been told that she was different. Other species often looked at her with disdain. She had been rejected by the Krell, a fierce warrior race. When they saw her for the first time, her soft skin and gentle demeanor did not meet their standards for strength. They turned her away without a second thought. Then she was sent to the Zarin. They were known for their intelligence, their technological advancements, and their pride. Lyra was sent to them as part of a diplomatic mission, hoping they would see the value of her people's way of life. But the Zarin looked down on her, dismissing her as nothing more than a curiosity. They believed that intelligence alone was the key to survival, and they had no need for what they considered weakness. Lyra's heart sank as she remembered. The moment she was sent back from the Zarin planet, she had tried to communicate with them, to show them that there was more to life than just logic and technology. The rejection was brutal, and she had no choice but to leave, her hopes of finding acceptance. Shattered once again, her shuttle drifted toward another system, the next on the list, another attempt to find a place where she might belong. But in her heart, Lyra was beginning to lose hope. Each new world seemed to reinforce the idea that she was different, and not in a good way. Her dreams of finding a place where she could finally settle, where someone could understand her, it felt like a distant fantasy. Lyra had been sent to countless planets, each one more discouraging than the last. The rejection had been constant, the sting of loneliness ever present. As her shuttle approached the planet, she gazed out the window, wondering if this time would be different. Maybe this time, she thought. Maybe this time someone would see her for who she was and offer her a chance at a home. As the shuttle descended into the atmosphere, she couldn't help but feel a knot of fear in her stomach. She had learned to expect disappointment, to prepare herself for the cold reception that always came. She had heard about Earth, a young world inhabited by humans. They were a species known for their diversity and compassion, but Lyra didn't know if she could trust that reputation. After all, she had trusted the others before, only to be cast aside. The shuttle landed with a soft thud, and Lyra's heart beat faster. She stepped off the ship, her antennae trembling slightly as she looked around. The humans who greeted her were dressed in uniforms, their faces filled with curiosity. They seemed friendly enough, but Lyra had learned to be cautious. She had no idea what to expect, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this might be her last chance. As she walked toward the human officials, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the countless rejections that had led her. Here, the feeling of being unwanted, of being told time and again that she didn't belong, hung heavy in her chest. Her heart ached with the familiar sting of loneliness. Could she really find a home here? Was she destined to face yet another rejection? The humans watched her closely, their eyes filled with both wonder and uncertainty. Some looked at her with curiosity, while others seemed uneasy. The tension in the air was thick. Lyra knew that humans had never encountered an alien quite like her before, and she couldn't help but wonder if they would see her the same way the others had. Would they reject her too? Her feet felt heavy as she took another step forward, the weight of her past failures pressing down on her shoulders. She had been rejected so many times that it had become her reality. The idea of finding a home seemed impossible, and yet as she looked into the faces of the humans before her, Something unexpected flickered in her chest, an unfamiliar feeling. A faint spark of hope. Lyra stood still as the humans gathered around her. She felt their eyes on her, their curiosity, and suspicion mixed in the air. It was the same feeling she had experienced on every planet she had visited. The feeling of being different, of standing out in a crowd, the weight of knowing she didn't belong. The humans spoke among themselves, in a language Lyra didn't fully understand. They seemed unsure of how to approach her. Her green skin, the delicate antennae on her head, and her large eyes must have been strange to them. She had been told that humans were kind-hearted and curious, but she didn't know what to expect. After all, she had been told that same thing by other species, only to be cast aside. One human stepped forward. His uniform was similar to the others, but he carried himself differently. His name was Ethan, and he had an air of quiet confidence. He wasn't afraid, and he didn't look at her as if she was something to be studied or feared. His eyes, kind and warm, met hers, and for the first time in a long while, Lyra felt seen. Ethan spoke to her in a slow, gentle voice. His words were simple, making sure she understood. "My name is Ethan. I'm here to help you," he said. Lyra blinked, unsure of how to react. She had heard that many species had a tendency to say kind things, but then treat her as though she didn't belong. She had grown used to that false kindness. But there was something different in Ethan's voice, something sincere that made her hesitate. "Why are you here?" she asked softly, her voice trembling slightly. It was the first time she had spoken in a long while. She didn't know how to trust these humans. What if they, too, rejected her? What if this was just another step in her journey of hopelessness? Ethan didn't flinch. Instead, he took a step closer, making sure not to invade her personal space. "You're not alone here. We're not going to reject you," he said, his voice filled with determination. "We believe in compassion. We believe in giving others a chance. You deserve that chance." Lyra felt a stir in her heart at his words. She had heard similar things before, but never from someone who truly seemed to mean it. The weight of her past, the endless rejections, seemed to fall away for a brief moment. Maybe, just maybe, this time, things would be different. The humans escorted Lyra to a facility where she would stay temporarily while they decided what to do next. The building was full of people, some of whom watched her with wide eyes, while others avoided her gaze altogether. Lyra could feel the stares, the whispers, but she did her best to ignore them. She had grown used to being the outsider, to being treated as something unusual. That night, she lay in a room with a bed that felt far too large for her small frame. Lyra stared at the ceiling. She wondered if she would ever truly feel at home. She had been cast out by every species she had encountered. Would Earth be any different? Ethan returned the next day, a soft smile on his face. He brought her a small meal, something that smelled warm and comforting. "I know it's not much, but I thought you might like it," he said. Setting the food down in front of her, Lyra hesitated before taking a bite. The food was different from what she was used to, but it tasted good. As she ate, Ethan sat down. Across from her, giving her space, but still present. "I want you to know," he began, "that this place, Earth, it's different. People here, humans, we're not perfect, but we try to help each other. We believe in giving second chances, and I want you to have one." Lyra looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of insincerity. But all she saw was kindness. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Ethan continued. "It's going to take time, and there will be people who don't understand, but I promise you, I'll be here to help. You don't have to face this alone." Tears welled up in Lyra's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. She had learned to hide her feelings, to shut them away so that they couldn't hurt her. But here, in front of Ethan, she couldn't hold back the emotions that had been building inside her for so long. The pain, the loneliness, the fear, all of it, came rushing forward. Ethan noticed the tears, and without a word, he gently placed his hand on hers. "It's okay to feel scared," he said softly. "You're not alone here. Figure this out together." Lyra looked up at him, the walls she had built around her heart starting to crumble. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this time things could be different. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she felt like there might be a chance for her, a chance to belong, to have a family, and to be accepted for who she truly was. Days turned into weeks, and life on Earth slowly became more familiar to Lyra. She had been given a small room in the human facility with a soft bed and warm food. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. Ethan continued to visit her every day, bringing her meals and talking with her. The more they spoke, the more Lyra began to trust him. Despite the kindness she had received, she couldn't help but feel unsure. She had been told so many times before that things would get better, that she would find a home, but nothing ever seemed to change. Every time she thought she had found a place where she could belong, she was rejected. Lyra had learned to protect her heart from disappointment. She had almost convinced herself that she would never find a place where she truly fit in. Ethan could see the sadness in Lyra's eyes, the way she sometimes pulled away from people or avoided certain situations. He knew that her past rejections had left deep scars, ones that could not be healed easily. But he also saw something else in her: strength, resilience, and a quiet hope that had not yet been fully extinguished. One afternoon, as Lyra sat by the window, watching the humans outside, Ethan walked in with a gentle smile. He had something important to say, something he had been thinking about for days. "Lyra," he began, his voice calm but firm. "I've been thinking a lot about you and how much you've been through, and I want to make you an offer." Lyra turned to face him, her heart beating faster. "An offer?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. Ethan nodded. "Yes. I know this might sound crazy, but I believe you deserve a real chance at happiness, a place where you can finally feel like you belong. I want to offer you a home, my home." Lyra's eyes widened, and she stepped back slightly. "Your home?" she repeated, unsure of what she had heard. "But I don't know anything about Earth. I don't know how things work here." Ethan smiled reassuringly. "I understand. It's a big world and there's a lot you don't know. But I'm willing to help you learn. I'll teach you about Earth, about our customs, our way of life. And if you accept, I promise you that you'll never be alone. I'll be here with you every step of the way." Lyra felt her heart race as she tried to process what Ethan was saying. Could she really trust him? Could she really leave the safety of the facility and go live with a human, someone she barely knew? She had never imagined something like this. She had spent so much time feeling rejected, unwanted, and unloved. The idea of having a family, of being accepted, was both terrifying and thrilling. But could she let herself believe it? Could she finally allow herself to have the one thing she had dreamed of for so long, a home? Ethan could see the hesitation in her eyes. He understood. It wasn't easy to trust after everything she had been through. But he wasn't asking her to decide right away. He just wanted her to know that there was a possibility, a real chance for her to find peace. "I know it's a big decision," Ethan said softly, "but I want you to think about it. You don't have to answer right now. Just know that the offer is there." Lyra looked out the window again, her mind racing. She thought about her past, how she had been rejected time and time again. She thought about the long, lonely nights she had spent on strange planets, trying to find a place where she could be accepted. And now, here she was, on a foreign world with a human offering her something she never thought possible: a home. An idea of it felt so foreign, so distant. Yet at the same time, it felt like a dream she had almost forgotten. Could she really take that step? Could she let herself trust again? "I don't know if I'm ready," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. "I've been hurt so many times before. I'm afraid of being hurt again." Ethan's expression softened. "I understand. It's not easy. But I want you to know that I'm not like the others. I'm not asking you to take a risk. I'm offering you a chance. A chance to live, to find your place in this world, and to be part of a family." Lyra's heart clenched as she listened to his words. She had never been part of a family before. She had never known what it felt like to belong, to be truly loved and accepted. Could this be the opportunity she had been waiting for? Ethan's offer was more than just a place to stay, was an offer of acceptance, of belonging. and of a future where she could finally live without fear of rejection. Lyra took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. One that would change everything. But, for the first time in her life, she felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find a place where she truly belonged. I think I'm ready, she said softly, her voice full of uncertainty, but also something else. Something stronger? I'll come with you. Ethan's face broke into a wide smile. You won't regret this, Lyra, he said, his voice full of warmth and reassurance. Lyra felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. She had made the decision, and though she was scared, she felt something inside her begin to shift. She wasn't alone anymore. She had a chance at a new life. And it all began with Ethan's simple offer a home. Lyra's first few days in Ethan's home were filled with a mix of emotions. Everything was new to her, the smells, the sounds, even the way humans interacted. With each other, she had lived her entire life as an outsider, constantly moved from one planet to the next, never truly finding a place where she belonged. Now, for the first time, she had a chance to build a life with someone who cared for her. Yet with that opportunity came the uncertainty of whether she could truly fit in. Ethan's house was a small, cozy place with plants by the windows and pictures on the walls. It felt welcoming, but Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong here. Ethan's friends, the few he had heard about the alien girl who had come to Earth. And while most were curious, others were hesitant. Some still looked at her as if she were an experiment, something to be observed and studied. Rather than a living being with her own desires and emotions, Ethan did his best to make her feel at home. He showed her the basics: how to use the kitchen, how to work this strange technology, how to navigate the city streets. He explained the customs of Earth and the way humans lived, though it was all so different from what Lyra had known. Still, she tried. Every day, she took small steps toward learning, toward fitting into this new world. But it wasn't easy. There were moments when Lyra felt overwhelmed by the newness of it all. The bright lights of the city, the loud sounds of human laughter, the fast-moving vehicles that rushed past hurt, it all seemed so foreign. She had spent so much of her life hiding, staying in the shadows, never fully participating in the world around her. Now, here she was, trying to join a society that wasn't ready to fully accept her yet. One afternoon, Ethan took Lyra to a nearby park. It was a peaceful place, with green grass and trees, and humans of all ages walked, talked, and played together. Lyra walked beside him, feeling small in comparison to the bustling crowd. She felt eyes on her, some curious, others not so kind. A group of children ran past, laughing as they played.
Ow.
One of them, a little girl with blonde hair, stopped in front of Lyra and stared up at her with wide eyes. Lyra froze, unsure of how to react. She had become accustomed to being stared at, but the way the child looked at her was different. It wasn't the usual fear or curiosity. It was wonder. "Are you an alien?" the little girl asked, her voice full of innocent curiosity. Lyra hesitated, her antennae twitching slightly. "Yes," she replied softly, unsure of what else to say. The little girl smiled brightly. "That's so cool. I've never met an alien before. Can I touch your antennae?" Lyra's eyes widened in surprise. You want to touch them?" The girl nodded eagerly. Lyra looked over at Ethan, who stood a few steps away, watching the interaction. Ethan smiled at her, giving her a reassuring nod. Lyra took a deep breath and slowly bent down, allowing the girl to gently touch her antennae. The sensation was strange, but not unpleasant. The little girl giggled as she ran her fingers along the delicate antennae. Lyra smiled, a small, genuine smile. For a brief moment, the weight of her past rejections lifted. Here in this park, among these humans, she felt a connection no matter how small. But as the little girl ran off to join her friends, the reality of her situation settled back in. She was different. No matter how much she wanted to be accepted, no matter how much she tried to belong, there would always be those who saw her as strange, as something to be feared or studied, as they walked back to Ethan's house. Lyra couldn't help but feel the weight of those stares. She had grown so used to being rejected, to being the odd one out, that it was hard to believe things could be different. But then Ethan's voice broke through her thoughts. "You're doing great, Lyra," he said softly. "I know it's hard, but you're not alone. I'll be with you every step of the way." Lyra looked at him, and for the first time since she had arrived on Earth, she saw the truth in his words. He wasn't just saying them out of politeness. He really meant it. In that moment, something inside her shifted. Maybe she could make this work. Maybe she could find a way to fit in, not by changing who she was, but by embracing it. That evening, as they sat down to dinner, Ethan gently placed a small book in front of her. "This is a book about Earth's history," he said. "I thought you might want to know more about our world, our people." Lyra looked at the book, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. She had spent so much of her life searching for a place to belong, but it was only now, with Ethan's help, that she realized she had to take the first step. It wouldn't be easy. There would be times when she would feel rejected, times when she would doubt herself. But maybe, just maybe, Earth was the place where she could find a new beginning. As she opened the book and began to read, Lyra realized that she had a long way to go. But for the first time in her life, she felt like she was on the right path. A path that, with time, might lead her to a place where she truly belonged. A place where she could be herself, without fear or shame, and with Ethan by her side. Lyra began to believe that maybe this time, things would be different. Lyra had been living with Ethan for several weeks now. She had started to get used to the rhythm of life on Earth, but every day still brought new challenges. It wasn't just the strange foods or the way humans spoke, it was the way people looked at her. She could see it in their eyes: curiosity, fear, and sometimes confusion. She had learned to live with these stares, but it still wasn't easy. One day, Ethan took her to a nearby store to buy some clothes. Lyra had never worn clothes like the humans did. On her home planet, her people didn't need them. But here, she saw how important they were to humans. It was strange to her, but she was willing to try. As they walked through the aisles of the store, Lyra looked around at the various fabrics and styles. The clothes were so different from what she was used to, but they were colorful and full of life. Ethan helped her pick out a few things: simple dresses, comfortable shoes, and a jacket. Nothing too fancy, but enough for her to feel like she'd fit in. She hesitated as she touched the fabric, unsure of how to wear it. But Ethan patiently guided her. When they reached the checkout, the cashier looked at Lyra, then back at Ethan, her expression cautious. Lyra noticed it, and for a moment she felt a wave of discomfort. The same feeling she had encountered on every planet, every world she had visited. It was like she was being judged before anyone really knew her. But this time, something inside her shifted. She wasn't going to hide anymore. She wasn't going to let the stares stop her from being herself. Ethan smiled at the cashier, ignoring the awkward silence. He paid for the clothes and gently placed the items in a bag. "Thank you," he said kindly to the cashier, then turned to Lyra. "Don't worry about it. Some people just need time to adjust." Lyra nodded, but the weight of the moment stayed with her as they left the store. She looked at Ethan, feeling a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "Will they ever accept me?" she asked quietly, more to herself than to him. Ethan's smile softened, and he put a hand on her shoulder. "It takes time. Not everyone will understand you right away, but that's okay. The most important thing is that you're here. You belong here with me." For the first time, Lyra believed him. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't going to be perfect, but maybe it didn't need to be. Maybe she could find her place here, among these humans who had given her a chance when no one else had. As the days passed, Lyra continued to explore Earth. She learned more about its people, its culture, and its history. She read the books Ethan had given her, each one opening her eyes to new ideas and ways of thinking. There was so much to learn, so much to understand. It felt overwhelming at times, but with Ethan by her side, it didn't feel impossible. Ethan introduced Lyra to some of his friends. At first they were hesitant, unsure of how to interact with an alien. But Lyra wasn't like the creatures they had heard about in stories. She wasn't a threat or a mystery. She was just like them, curious, kind, and eager to learn. Slowly they began to accept her into their circles. They asked her questions, listened to her stories, and shared their own experiences. The more time Lyra spent with them, the more she began to feel like she truly belonged. One evening, as they sat around a campfire in Ethan's backyard, Lyra smiled at the group. The warmth of the fire, the sound of laughter, and the gentle breeze in the air made her feel peaceful, like she had found a place where she could truly relax. Ethan sat beside her, his hand resting on hers. "You're doing great, Lyra," he said, his voice full of pride. Lyra looked at him, her heart swelling with appreciation. "I never thought I'd find a place like this," she said softly. "I thought I'd always be alone." "You're not alone," Ethan replied. "Not anymore." Lyra smiled, a smile that was full of warmth and hope. She had come so far in such a short time. She had gone from being an alien on the run, rejected by every species she had encountered, to finding a family, a home, and acceptance. Earth was her new beginning. As the night grew darker and the fire slowly died down, Lyra sat back and looked at the stars above. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel afraid. She didn't feel like an outsider. She felt like she had a place here, a place where she was valued, where she was loved. She thought about all the times she had been sent away, all the times she had been told she wasn't good enough. It seemed so far away now, like a distant memory. She had found something more important than acceptance. She had found a purpose. Earth had become her home, and Ethan had become her family. No longer was she the alien girl who was rejected. She was Lyra, a being with her own future, her own story, in a place where she could truly be herself. And that was all she had ever wanted. Lyra had never felt more at home. Earth, with its variety of people and peaceful landscapes, was everything she had longed for. Ethan had become her closest companion, and slowly she was making real connections. She felt like she could finally breathe, like she was no longer hiding or running from her past. But just as she began to feel at peace, something changed. One evening, Lyra and Ethan sat on the porch watching the sunset. The peaceful silence was broken by the sound of a loud notification coming from Ethan's communicator. It was a message from one of his friends who worked in a government agency that monitored alien activity across the galaxy. The message was urgent. Ethan opened the message, his face growing serious. "Lyra," he said, his voice quiet but filled with concern. "There's something you need to know." Lyra stood up, feeling the tension in the air. "What is it?" she asked. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then turned the screen toward her. It was a report showing images of ships large, menacing, and unmistakably alien heading toward Earth. They were from an alien race called the Jiren, known for their aggressive ways and their belief in superiority. They viewed humans as weak and unworthy of having any power in the galaxy, and the Gyren had heard about Lyra's arrival on Earth. To them, her presence was an insult. They believed that any species harboring an alien like her was a threat. "They're coming here," Ethan said, his voice shaking slightly. "They want to take Earth. They see you as a symbol of weakness, and they don't like that." Lyra's heart sank. She had only just begun to understand and embrace Earth as her home, and now there was a threat looming over everything. She had never imagined that something as simple as being herself could cause so much harm to others. She turned to Ethan, her face filled with worry. "What will happen now?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan looked at her, his expression filled with determination. "We have to stop them," he said firmly. "Earth will fight for you, for all of us. You're not alone." Lyra felt a sense of fear and confusion wash over her. She had never wanted to cause harm. All she had ever wanted was to be accepted, to find peace. And now, because of who she was, war was coming to Earth. She didn't know what to do. But as she looked at Ethan's steady face, she knew one thing. She couldn't let these invaders take her new home. She couldn't let them destroy everything she had worked for. For the next few days, the atmosphere around the planet grew tense. The humans prepared themselves for the unknown. Lyra's presence on Earth was no longer just a peaceful curiosity. It had become a rallying point, and humans who had once been hesitant or fearful of her now stood behind her. She was not just an alien. She was a symbol of the hope that Earth could stand strong against any threat, no matter how large Ethan was with her every step of the way. He helped gather information, preparing for the worst. He explained to her the steps humans had taken in defense, how they had built strong ships and weapons to protect their planet. It was a side of Earth she had never seen before, their power, their courage. But it wasn't just the technology that gave Lyra hope. It was the people, the humans, who were willing to stand together and fight for what they believed in. As the Giran fleet neared Earth, Lyra stood beside Ethan, looking up at the sky. The ships were massive, their engines burning with an intensity that made the ground shake. Lyra could feel the fear in the air, but she could also feel something else: unity. The humans weren't afraid anymore. They were ready to defend their planet, to protect everything they held dear. "They're coming," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with a mix of fear and determination. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're ready for them," he said. "You're not alone, Lyra. We'll fight together." The battle began. The Giran ships entered Earth's atmosphere, their weapons aimed at the cities below, but the humans were ready. Earth's ships, built to protect the planet from any threat, took to the skies. The battle was fierce, the air filled with the sounds of explosions and the flashing of laser beams. The Giran had underestimated humanity. They'd underestimated the strength that came from unity, from standing together as one. Lyra watched from the command center, her heart racing as the battle raged on. She had never imagined that she would be the reason for such a fight, but as she watched the humans defend their home, she realized something important. They weren't fighting for her alone. They were fighting for the future, for a world where anyone, no matter their background, could live in peace. Hours passed, and slowly the tide of the battle began to turn. The Giran fleet, though powerful, could not match the determination of Earth's forces. The humans fought with a passion that the invaders had not expected. Lyra felt a surge of pride in her chest as the Giran ships began to retreat. Earth had won. As the dust settled and the skies cleared, Lyra stood alongside Ethan, looking at the horizon. The battle was over. Giran had been driven back, and Earth was safe once again. Ethan turned to her, his eyes full of gratitude. "You did it, Lyra. We did it together." Lyra smiled, her heart filled with a warmth she had never felt before. "No," she said softly. "We did it because we believed in each other. That's what made us strong." The battle was over, but the scars it left on Earth and its people would take time to heal. Lyra stood alongside Ethan, looking at the horizon where the last of the Giran ships had disappeared. The sky was clear again, the bright blue stretching above them like a canvas of endless possibilities. She felt a sense of relief wash over her, but she also knew that things had changed. Earth had proven its strength. Now the galaxy knew that humans would not be easily defeated. Lyra had witnessed the courage of the humans firsthand, and it made her heart swell with pride. They had stood together, not just to protect their home, but to protect what they believed in, the idea that no one should ever be cast aside or rejected simply because they were different. And Lyra, the alien girl who had been rejected by so many, had found her place among them. Ethan stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders as they watched the last remnants of the Giran fleet vanish into the distance. "We did it, Lyra," he said quietly, his voice full of emotion. "They're gone. Earth is safe." Lyra looked up at him, her heart full of gratitude. "We did it," she echoed. "But it wasn't just me, Ethan. It was everyone. It's all the humans who stood together to fight for what's right." Ethan smiled warmly, squeezing her shoulder. "That's what makes humans so incredible. We don't give up, no matter what." As the days passed, Earth began to rebuild. The damage from the battle was significant, but the people of Earth were strong, and they worked together to repair what had been destroyed. Lyra watched in awe as humans banded together, helping each other, supporting one another in the face of adversity. She had never seen anything like it before. It wasn't just their strength in battle that impressed her. It was their ability to come together in times of need, to show compassion and kindness even in the darkest of moments. One afternoon, as Lyra sat with Ethan in their small backyard, watching the sunset, she felt a deep sense of peace. The world around her was healing, and she was healing too. The fear and uncertainty that had once filled her heart were slowly fading away, replaced by a quiet confidence. She had found a home, a real home, not just a place to stay, but a place where she was truly accepted, where she could be herself without fear. Ethan turned to her, his eyes soft with affection. "Lyra," he began, his voice gentle, "I want you to know that you've become part of my family. You're not just an alien anymore. You're my sister, my friend, and I will always be here for you." Lyra felt tears stinging her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. She had never known what it felt like to have a family. She had been alone for so long, rejected by so many, that the idea of being loved and accepted seemed like a distant dream. But now, with Ethan by her side, she realized that dream was becoming a reality. "You're my family too, Ethan," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. "You've given me something I never thought I'd have, a place where I belong." Ethan smiled and pulled her into a gentle hug. "You always belonged, Lyra. You just had to find your way here. And now you have." As the weeks turned into months, Lyra continued to learn more about Earth and its people. She became more involved in the community, helping wherever she could. The humans who had once been unsure about her now saw her for who she truly was, a kind, compassionate being. With a lot to offer, she made friends, shared stories of her home planet, and slowly began to feel like she was no longer an outsider. One evening, as she walked through the park with Ethan, Lyra looked up at the stars. The sight was familiar, yet different. Back on her home planet, she had always looked up at the stars and felt small, lost in the vastness of the universe. But now, with Earth beneath her feet, she felt a sense of belonging. She was part of something bigger, something greater than herself. And for the first time, she didn't feel alone. Ethan walked beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "You know," he said, "I've always believed that the greatest strength of humanity is our ability to adapt, to change, and to welcome the unknown. Lyra are a perfect example of that." Lyra smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "I never thought I would be a part of something like this. I never thought I'd be accepted. But here I am, and I'm finally home." Ethan stopped and turned to face her, his expression serious but warm. "You've always had a place here, Lyra. And now you're not just a visitor. You're one of us." Lyra looked up at him, her heart full. She had found her forever home. Not in the stars, not on some faraway planet, but right here, on Earth, with Ethan, with the humans who had opened their hearts to her, and with the people who had shown her that even the most rejected among them could find a place where they truly belonged. As she stood there, watching the stars twinkle above, Lyra finally understood what it meant to have a home, a place where love, acceptance, and hope could grow. And for the first time in her life, she was no longer just an alien. She was Lyra, and she had found her place in the universe.